I mean, just show up to your job. Is that too much to ask? Apparently it is for Democrats. In order to prevent a quorum to vote on redistricting in Texas, which would apparently add 5 congressional seats to the Republican side, bonus also, it could actually eliminate Jasmine Crockett's seat, which would be hilarious. The libs know that this requires 100 out of the 150 state legislatures to show up in order to be able to take a vote in the first place, the quorum idea. Democrats instead, they got on a private plane, I may add, and fled to Chicago. But don't worry, it's for democracy.
If you're seeing this video, my Democratic colleagues and I have just left our beloved state to break quorum and stop Trump's redistricting power grab. They're turning our districts into crazy shapes to guarantee the outcome they want in the 2026 elections. But Texas Democrats are fighting back. We're leaving the state, breaking quorum, and preventing Republicans from silencing our voices and rigging the next election. We are not fighting for the Democratic Party. We are fighting for the democratic process.
Whatever, dude. All right. In order to save democracy, you need to do the opposite of what you were elected to do. These people are ridiculous. And because of the people like that guy right there, the Texas House just passed a motion like a few minutes ago to arrest people like him, the Democrats who fled the state.
The Sergeant-at-Arms and any officers appointed by her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purposes of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrant of arrest if necessary until further order of the House. Members, under the rules, while the House is under a call, any member who wishes to leave the hall must have written permission of the Speaker. The chair is providing written permission to be entered in the journal for each member registered as present on today's roll call to leave the chamber and return tomorrow at 1 p.m.
So now they can throw some of these dweebs in jail. I know this is going to come as a shock to Democrats, but sometimes there's consequences for your actions. This isn't the first time this scenario has played out. If you remember, back in 2021, more than 50 Democrats fled to Washington, D.C. to protest election integrity laws being passed, but they had to come back eventually. I mean, like, I know Republicans just wanted like voter ID and like validation that you were on the vote. These are all like super democracy-y things, right? Because Governor Abbott started fining them $500 a day and put arrest warrants out them. And then the law passed anyway, which shows you how stupid this whole protest is by the Democrats. But during that time, the Texas Supreme Court, they actually ruled that Texas could, in fact, arrest absent Democrats and then forcefully bring them back to the floor for a quorum. Here, look, Article 3, Section 10 of the Texas Constitution, quorum adjournments from day to day compelling attendance. 2/3 of each house shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and compel the attendance of members or absent members in such manner that under such penalties as each house may provide. Key word there, 2 of them actually, being shall constitute a quorum, not may. Another key phrase here. Compel the attendance of absent members, which is why the Democrats left the state. You got Jasmine Crockett up there saying this is because they want to silence black and brown people, though. Okay.
But I do think it's important for us to have the conversation around the fact that this is bigger than Texas. This isn't just about the 5 seats in Texas. This is about a power grab. It is about basically setting the tone for what Donald Trump will try to do throughout this country so that he can suppress the voices of black and brown folk just so that he can stay in power.
Okay. Here's the irony of these libs actually going to Chicago to protest gerrymandering congressional districts. This is beyond hilarious to me. I'm going to show you why. Our favorite guy to hate, Brian Krasentine, said also, Governor Abbott has issued a warning, blah, 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 because the GOP is all about cheating. The GOP is about cheating. Really? I mean, this is hilarious. This is the Illinois congressional map where the Texas libs are held up in right now. They have districts that look like rivers so they can include different cities and cut out the rural population to ensure Democrat control. And look at those, look at that. That is ridiculous. That's the state. Go check out the city of Chicago itself where they're all mashed together. Look at this. They literally built congressional districts around certain areas to deprive Republicans. I mean, what is District 8? What is that? Democrats are leaving Texas to protest something not even remotely as blatant as the gerrymandering as this. Like, this is the Texas proposed map. As far as I can see, it looks pretty basic to me. It's like rectangles and squares and circles. I mean, like things that actually seem to fit. None of this weird boot-shaped districts or anything like that. And because Democrats don't have the majority in Texas, there's really nothing they can do about it except for literally not show up for work, which is against the law. I'm so tired of this. Look, they did this same crap in Connecticut. Look at this map, okay? Notice how that top left, the two districts, they look like Italy going into Hartford. I mean, they got like a boot. Like, why did they do that? Well, here's why. Because this is Connecticut's electoral map from 2024 by town, showing very clearly a bunch of red districts over there where they split up that little boot thing. That could have swayed northwestern Connecticut to actually elect a Republican congressman. George Logan came extremely close despite this map anyway. And this is the game. They redrew congressional district maps to take some of those red rural areas and that fall within Hartford's district now, which is heavily populated by Democrats, so they could keep those seats. They're not even trying to hide it. They say they're doing this out loud. Democrats been doing it in New York. Look at New York 19. That was a whole debacle. They wanted to make that thing like 3 miles wide and like 50 miles long. They've been doing it in Wisconsin. I mean, really anywhere they can get away with it because these districts are approved by the legislature. And if you have a majority, you can kind of do whatever you want until the court steps in, which they have done in some purple states. For some reason, though, it always tends to benefit Democrats and never Republicans. But what else is new? And the way they've been getting around some of these gerrymandering things, Democrats that is using this 1965 Voter Rights Act to build districts based on race. And with the Supreme Court, though, this weekend choosing to take up this challenge, Democrats are pretty much freaking out. Look, Democrats are the king of gerrymandering, and yet they're trying to accuse Texas of doing it. If anything, Texas is undoing it. Look, if anything, Republicans are making districts more, like I said, squares and circles. They seem to fit better. Right? Now, at least they don't look like a Nickelodeon splat sign or a banana or something weird like that. So what happens now? Because in 2021, all these Democrats raised money and nobody had to cover the fines out of their own pockets. Their travel and their hotels were all paid for by donors, which I find insane because legislatures actually do have very specific guidelines about accepting gifts. Also, nobody was ever arrested, or even after the state Supreme Court said they could be. I mean, it's after 3 o'clock and we don't have Democrats on the House floor. And because it's a state crime, Abbott has no authority to go to Chicago and drag them back because, let's be honest, Pritzker's not going to extradite them back to Texas. So there's no legal precedent for people not showing up because when they wrote these laws, nobody ever anticipated that this would be a problem because it says in their state constitution that you have to show up. However, this is the theory that I'm sure is going to be tested. Article 3, Section 13 of the Texas Constitution, vacancies. Abbott's argument is that they're abandoning their seat. They've left the jurisdiction under the state constitution. It's enforceable with the Democrats' intent, which is by definition an insurrection, by the way. They're trying to interrupt House proceedings. Therefore, under this section, Abbott, technically, I think that's his plan, is to call a new election. And he should. Look, this redistricting is happening, libs, just like it happened last time with the voter ID and things like that. And the time before that, these people have to come home eventually. And whether Abbott calls for new elections or not, a quorum will be obtained. And Texas will likely pick up 5 additional Republican congressional seats. But here's an idea, and I was just thinking, I'm just spitballing here. If they really wanted to, have a majority in a place like Texas, Democrats could actually try not being crazy and coming up with actual policies that work with actual values of most of the people in their state. But they don't do that. And I know that's a reach, but just a thought.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.